Kia ora and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Lounge. The Lounge is a space for healthcare leaders to get some ideas, some fresh perspectives, but to take a breath, to just acknowledge all the amazing things that you are doing every single day. I'm Katie, I'm your host, and I've worked in healthcare for over 30 years, and I now get to work with healthcare leaders and their teams so that they can feel supported, connected, open-minded, courageous and optimistic in the work that you are doing every day. So this week I was, tapping back into that Grateful in April campaign that is running at the moment, and one of my favourite topics. And I was like, why do I get so excited about gratitude? Why do I think this is so important? And it came down to, when I stopped to think about it and reflect on it, was this idea of our mindsets. The choice of how we are choosing, yeah, that makes sense. How we are choosing to think about a situation influences the situation. So if you go, we're going to have a terrible day today, you're likely to have a terrible day today. If you said, hey, there's lots of opportunities today. I know that's a bit corny. What would I more likely say? Hey, we're going to have fun today. Hey, we get to work together today. Hey, I've got this stuff I'm going to get done today. If you choose to look at it like that, you're more likely to have productive, energizing, all of that sort of day. The day that's going to be more fun, more joy in work, right? So I think our mindsets are really important. And I'd recently done some training around vertical mindset assessment and debriefing. And so this space of mindset is what I've been thinking about there, the way we are choosing. And it's not something that's it's kind of like this whole body sort of approach to something. Anyway, I'm going off tangent because what I wanted to talk about in relation to gratitude and Grateful in April was this idea of an abundance mindset. So over on the blog, I have popped in a couple of new blog posts around what happened to me when I fell into the pit of a scarcity mindset. Not long after I had started working for myself, and the realization of what you have to do as a self-employed person kind of hit. And what scared me most about it was that I noticed how much this mindset was influencing how I was behaving, how I was showing up, the energy I was putting out there, and this reactive, fear-based mode I was in. And it was a real negative spiral. And so for me, the way of getting out of that and shifting was through connection with other people. I'm forever saying in this, we can't do this alone, we need each other. Connection's super important. But it was also about gratitude and actually leaning when I felt the least. I really didn't want, I felt I had nothing to be grateful for. It was awful when I look back. So leaning into gratitude when you're in this scarcity mindset is actually really hard and really uncomfortable. And you kind of have to, it's one of those things like, when you're doing some physical exercise, it's painful, but you're going to do it anyway because there's benefits from it. It was that. And so there's other moments when I look back over my whole career and life where gratitude has come up. Gratitude comes up. And so it's clearly quite inherent. It must be a strong value mindset or value with me. So this idea of abundance mindset really connects for me with gratitude. Now, so I talked there a little bit about this idea of scarcity mindset. So that's obviously the flip side, the dark side, when you are stuck in this space of not enough. And that can be not enough anything. And it could be not enough beds, not enough money, not enough time, not enough people. I haven't got enough skills. I am not enough. So it can very easily trigger into all of those things. And what happens is when you're in there, you blame others. You're hoping others fail. You are hoarding stuff. Now it's a survival sort of reaction around things, but it's still a choice that you're choosing to look at things like that. It doesn't feel like a choice, but we are in charge of what we're thinking about and how we're thinking. So you're kind of choosing that mindset about where you're thinking, the way you're thinking about it, rather than what the actual truth is, what the facts are of the situation. Now, admittedly, there are days when there are not enough beds and there are not enough staff, but a scarcity mindset is not going to support or help you manage, cope, work through and move on with the day if you're starting like that. So this idea of choosing to think about those type of days, whatever it is that there is not enough of, choosing how you're thinking about it can make a difference to how you approach it, what you do, how you influence, how other people are going to react to you. So it's a really important sort of leadership trait around this choice of how you're thinking. Now, it's interesting. So you could argue that the scarcity mindset, the flip side, is an abundant mindset. And that is definitely how an awful lot of the literature that is out there talks about it. Interestingly, Brené Brown talks about it slightly differently. And she says it's around sufficiency. That's the opposite. So she says, addressing scarcity doesn't mean searching for abundance, but rather choosing a mindset of sufficiency. Sufficiency isn't an amount at all. It's an experience. It's a context we generate, a declaration of knowing what there is and that there is enough and that we are enough. So this idea of there is enough. So one of the first places that this idea of this mindset has come from is from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a book I've mentioned a few times. And this sits within the habit called win-win, the win-win habit. And this idea of this abundance mindset comes from that. But this idea of enough, so he talks about this pie analogy, and I've used this when I talk about compassion and we talk about empathy. So it's this idea that if you've got a pie, if you're thinking about things of like there's a pie, then there's a limit, right? And if somebody is grabbing a big slice of that pie, then that's going to A, annoy you, and B, you're going to try and get in there first. So that's that idea of hoarding resources and hoarding information, or grabbing all the opportunities for yourself because you think there's not enough for everybody. And that's not true, because it ain't pie. And that there is enough of these things out there. So confidence is a great one. So you start to beat yourself up and talk yourself down because somebody else is being more confident or more successful in a particular area. And so you then start thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not enough for this. I'm not doing enough of that. And you start reacting in that way. So you're starting to track what they might be doing and trying to copy them rather than really owning what you bring into the situation and what you know and what your experiences are. And then you realize that you do have enough confidence and there's actually enough for everybody. So it's the idea of lifting others up doesn't mean that we fall lower down. I guess I could really trap into the conversations about equity here when it comes to this, but it's this idea that there is enough for everybody. So why does this matter for healthcare leaders right now? And I think if you think about the context that you're in, all the stuff that is going on, one of the things that when you're choosing a mindset of sufficiency or abundance, whichever one you're going to resonate with the most, this idea is that you are more likely to embrace change. You're more able to learn. You're going to be talking about ideas. You're going to be sharing information. You're going to celebrate the success of others. You're going to be able to influence more. Because this is about how you are showing up. So your mindset, how you're choosing, is going to influence how you're showing up. Now, this can have an impact not only at work, but it has an impact about your home life, your family, all the things that you're doing outside of work. Because this is all about, what it comes down to is about the energy that you are then able to generate. So the trick here is, or the key thing here is to really recognize this idea of mindset, and it's how you are thinking about the situation. And if there is different ways that you can think about a situation, then you get to choose how you think about it. And so if you want to consider, how do I want to show up? what's going to help me in this situation. And therefore you're going, okay, how do I need to choose to think in order to be able to achieve that or to show up in that way? So you're really kind of saying, what is the type of leader that I want to be? How do I want to spread the energy, spread the joy, or do I want to spread doom and gloom around things? It's really important. And one of the blog posts that actually gets searched probably the most or gets clicked on the most is this idea of the Stockdale paradox, which is unfortunately now going on the list for another episode. But it's this idea that you don't ignore the current context. This is, again, not toxic positivity. This is about acknowledging the situation, being really truthful about the situation, but then choosing how you're going to approach that, how you're going to think about that situation. So does not enough staff mean you're going to have a terrible day, or does not enough staff mean that you can really lean into the way that you work together, that you can work together to understand what the priorities are and make sure that you achieve those? Is it about, if there's not enough staff, it's about being really clear as to what helps most? So your mindset is what's going to help influence those choices. So using the common analogy of not enough staff, but I think all of you are smart enough to be able to apply that kind of logic and thinking to whatever situation it is, where it would be about something that you're feeling like, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough skills, confidence, knowledge, what the hell am I doing? Or is it about a thing that's in front of you in terms of, I haven't got enough time to get all this work done? Again, if you're going to tell yourself that, then you're kind of on a loser to start with. Hence why it sits into that win-win space in Stephen Covey's book. Okay. So what are we saying around this then, in that relationship to gratitude and Grateful in April campaign that I'm raving on about, and why gratitude's so important to me and why I think it can make a difference? Is the first thing is, again, that recognize what mindset you're using or applying in a particular situation. So the awareness is the first part, right? Yeah. Same kind of scenario when you think about growth mindset or fixed mindset. It's not that we use the same mindset in every single situation. I definitely have got a fixed mindset about some things, like managing my hair, for instance, randomly, but a growth mindset about some other stuff. So you recognize this context, this situation. What mindset am I actually applying to this? And then you get to make that conscious choice. Now, I know you're all sitting there listening to this, or walking or driving or whatever it is that you are doing right now. And you're like going, okay, how do I shift then? How do I shift? And it comes back to that story at the beginning around the leaning into gratitude. So there are things to be grateful for, and there are different tactics and tools that you can use to just practice that. And at the end of the day, you could just say, what's made me smile today? What is a good thing that's happened? Who has made me smile? Just really simple questions on your drive, walk, travel home, just to get tapped into that space of thinking about what's been good today. Yeah, there's been a whole lot of bad stuff, and we can start ruminating about all of that maybe, but there'll be some good. You'll have smiled somewhere. I used to do this thing called collecting smiles, and I was walking through a hospital the other day, and I started doing it again, and it's kind of like clearly this natural state I go to around smiling at people. So what has made you smile today is quite a good question to ask people. Now, I've collected, as you can imagine, a few resources over the years that help you kind of like play around in this space to understand what is it that's going to work for you, because what works for me is not going to work for you. You've got to find the thing that really helps you cotton onto this and see the difference that it can make. So I've got a couple of resources that you can download. There's a really cool practice guide for if you just feel like I have not got the time for this. In all reality, time is a challenge, right? So, and the amount of things that you're being asked to do. So I don't have time to do this whole big gratitude thing. So this gratitude practice guide gives you these micro moments through the day and all the activities are well under 5 minutes that you can do. So they're really simple. Don't take much effort. Just take a little bit of intentional thought. So again, choosing to do this, being intentional. There is also a gratitude workbook. Now this has got a whole load of different things you can just test out and go, maybe this is the thing. Maybe this is the thing. Maybe this is how I'm going to use it. This has been useful. And as with all things, what works today might not work next month. So there's a lot of different things to test and try out in the gratitude workbook. And then the other thing, so many people have signed up for this, I can't believe it, it still sort of slightly freaks me out, to be quite honest, is the appreciative feedback online course. Really amazing shift that you can start to make in terms of morale, engagement, energy, joy, all of that stuff, is to be really clear and intentional about giving appreciative feedback to each other and making that part of your culture in your team. So I've got all of those links in one place on the website, but I will also obviously put the links to those things and the resources that I've tapped into as I've just done a little bit of reading around this, or reminding myself about the abundance mindset and the difference that it can make and that impact that it can have, and the habits that we start to hold on to when we are choosing an abundant mindset. I'll put them all in the show notes as usual. As you can hear my voice, I have well recovered from the awful sickness I had last week, but the voice is still a bit croaky, to be honest. So I am going to wrap up here, say thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Leadership Lounge. Remember, you can find out loads of little freebie stuff on my website at katiequinney.com. Sign up for the weekly email. So in the No Jedi weekly email newsletter thingy that goes out, there are these ideas, snapshots, inspiration, quotes, just the thing that you can go, that's what I need today. And so many people get back to me around I don't read it all, I just read this one bit. That bit's grabbed my attention today. So that's what it's there for, to give you the encouragement and the support to keep going every week. All right, thanks for listening. I will be back talking to you again next week in another episode of The Leadership Lounge. Take care.